What we wanted to do was bring people together from different backgrounds to collaborate on the spot in real time through musical interaction. And the thing is that music is so often positioned as this unifying factor, but I think most musicians know that it's not an elixir of unity. Things can go wrong, but it is powerful at the same time. So what we wanted to do was really get at what works and what doesn't when you bring musicians of different backgrounds together. And so we did this in a situation where we are creating on the spot and improvising on the spot as a collective group of individuals, all improvising in some cases. In other instances, we're just bringing in a small fragment, a riff, a rhythm, a melody, a chord progression, and see what everybody adds to it. Because when a collaboration is successful, it is usually one where you find the common ground and have everybody represented as individual artists.
So I was just really curious to see what happens when you have musicians who live within the same city, for instance, but who never get to play together. In a place like Cape Town, which is a very cosmopolitan city, you find musicians who work in different worlds. They operate within different worlds and they never get to play music together. You have classical musicians, you have jazz musicians, African musicians, and other categories. And for me, I was really curious to see what's going to happen should we have some of those people. Interestingly, like, this project didn't really involve people from extreme backgrounds, in that you find some of them who've been playing together for some time. But indeed, there are also people in the project who have never been together in the same space before, especially to make music. And for me, it was quite interesting to have that kind of experiment where you have people who speak different musical languages coming together to play music. An extreme situation would be to bring people who don't do the same kind of activity musically. For instance, maybe you have someone who improvises and another person who just strictly plays written music. That would be an extreme case. And of course, I still believe that whether it's going to work or not totally depends on the musicians. If they choose to make it work, I still believe that it would work. And if not, if they choose not to make it work, even if you have two people who play the same genre, like if they choose not to interact, then there's going to be a fallout in the experiment.
The goal, I think, for the day is just to get about 30 to 45 minutes worth of music. It can be largely improvised, or we can come up and collectively put together some grooves and compose some things. But I also brought in a couple simplified tunes that have an A and a B section to them, that we can have something with some structure that I can teach to you. I've got kind of a chart, very minimalistic. So I've got 2 tunes that we can do. I think we should do a freely improvised, anything goes type of thing. If something emerges out of that, we can take notes and then try to recreate something.
What do you mean completely free improv?
So here's the thing, I guess, depending on anyone's background in freely improvised music, it doesn't have to go into a tone center, but it can.
Okay.
And I would like to have the possibility to do both. You know, it doesn't have to be the same thing over and over, but maybe we do a couple run-throughs, see what emerges, like I said, and then we can decide, oh, and this one let's go in this direction, and this one let's go in another direction. It's the most open format that everybody can contribute without stepping on each other's feet, more or less. But it'd be nice maybe to have different people introduce whatever. It's open, but just like I said, by the end of the day, 30 to 45 minutes worth of music, like a set.
What we had to do on stage, we had to compose songs on the spot. Each and every one of us came with an idea, and then we would put that idea together and we would work on it, and it will become a song. And we managed to do, I think, 6 or 7. That's how good these people were.
So basically the first part is going to be, let's make a mistake we're going to make, and then sort it out and see what happens. We have both ready?
Yeah.
Felt more comfortable and confident because I at least knew some of the people in the place. Like I'd already spoken to Joe about the fact that like I was feeling really self-conscious about it and I didn't really know how I was going to do it, and then he was just like, just come as you are, and what you are is what we want. And we actually are kind of looking for the fact that you haven't done this before, and that's an advantage to the thing. So I think that that was a big, having had that conversation, having Joe there, even though like I never relied on Joe, like I never said to Joe, okay, look, I'm going to follow you for this one. And then knowing everybody else in the, like I'd seen everybody either play, or I'd spoken to them, or I'd had some sort of interaction, or they teach me, you know, those sort of things made me feel a lot more comfortable.
Thing where you're thrown in with a whole lot of musicians, the idea of that makes me quite anxious as well, especially because of my kind of upbringing in the jazz school, how good you are as a musician or as a jazz musician, and how well you can improvise, and that kind of pressure, the intense pressure that you feel to be like a burning jazz musician. I still have to forget about that training that I've had, you know, and that's why I don't like playing jazz with anyone. And I feel like I finally got to the point in my musical career when I can use what was useful from that degree and maybe even take it further myself. Like, I don't have to associate like improvising and performing like in an improvised setting with so much anxiety around how well I'm playing within that key, or how like the chordal structures of what I'm doing, like how good that is, or is it working, whatever. Like, there's a lot of anxiety that I experience with that. So I was surprised at how like I could just trust myself to go with what was happening. But I also feel like the fact that the whole thing was set up as a come as you are, the whole point of it was the experiment, kind of made it feel like whatever I did was good enough. That was the whole point, you know, even if it completely didn't work, that's still a valuable output.
My inspiration comes when I hear the people giving the stuff in the practice, ideas. So my inspiration comes to me, and let me also bring my own music, original music from Kasai. That rhythm, we call it Mutwashi. So that's why I give it the song title Mutwashi. That song is meaning like celebrate in every circumstances you are, even in the school, in the work, in any way you are. That is a celebrating song.
I think also, no matter how hard we tried, like genres do tend to come through. Sort of like styles of music and preferences and stuff do come through in the playing. I mean, like when Daddy introduces his tune, like he is the most comfortable with that style of playing of the whole ensemble. So I don't know if there is actually a way that you can like really represent every genre, and instead you actually kind of need to, or not genre, but style or whatever you want to call it, but you kind of, yeah, you have like this middle ground that's going to be in between any set of musicians you put together. So I mean, if we changed the thing entirely and we replaced all of ourselves with different musicians, even playing the same instruments, we'd get something completely different, even just in overall sound. So yeah, it's interesting for that conversation.
With my first arrangement I do in my life. Feel it like I want to play this melody with a different background people, like South African people, white people, to hear it how it looks, how it goes for the groove. That's why I'm playing it the same way you guys playing it. Like it's not your music, it's my music. I'm the one who know it better. But the way you're playing it, it gives me ideas.
That like whole thing is like the perfect example of just us working out how each musician plays. You know, it was like we were sussing out how to work together, and you can see it like as it's happening. It's really fascinating to watch. I think like from my own experience, that's like the most uncomfortable space, or like uncertain space to be in. You can see like I'm trying to work out what to play and like how to fit into the sound of the group. And I think everyone was trying to work that out. What sound was needed from me, like that's kind of what I felt like the whole way through that as it shifted. It's kind of chaotic if you look at it in some ways. Like, I mean, obviously seeing it like in such short bits, you can probably see the flow a bit better if you watch the whole 15 minutes, but it's pulled on different ideas and then something else happened. And then every now and then, like it just worked. Like there was the one section where I felt suddenly like Joe and I started trading solos with each other, and then I was like, whoa, this is happening now, you know, and it really worked, like was so nice. And then like I don't know how we even got to that part, but it just like started happening. For me, that experience is about being brave and working out when to assert yourself into that space.
I came up with an idea which was on 7/4. For the last couple of months, I've been playing with Siswanke Kondi, and most of the songs that we play are in 7/4, and I haven't played in that time in a very long time. I'm used to play, 6/8, 3/4, 4/4, 12/8, etc., etc., even 5. So this time signature reminded me of Riswasi. He is a Cameroonian drummer, very brilliant. He does amazing things on the drums. And every time I think of a 7/4, I think of Brice. So this time around, I was thinking of Brice, and I was thinking of a legend called Michael Ludonga, who used to play African drums for Amampondo. He passed away in 2016. We were very close. So every time when I'm sitting in front of the drums, I imagine Michael's sound and my own sound, and of course other people. So in this case, the idea was inspired by Riswasi, Michael Ludonga, and myself.
The tune that I brought in called Perfectly Imperfect, the name came much later, but it was originally just an exercise that I wanted to do to mimic sort of the guitar style of Jean Bosco Mwenda. At least just the... I just wanted that progression and just the steady thumb so that I can then do the finger to do something more interesting. Then it just developed over time. I just added parts and added parts. That was actually a mistake that I made on a gig. I went to the minor instead of back to the major. I just missed it, and I was like, well, that sounds good, so I left it in there. So I would fast forward through everything.
Yeah, I think somehow we managed to find a sound that worked for the group. My experience with improvising music in other contexts, completely different sounds come out. Like the kind of music that we have improvised together is very spacious and there's no groove. I mean, eventually we have settled on grooves and stuff, but there's a safety that we feel as a group in like creating a lot of space and sounds and really listening to like each other, but there's a lot of silence in between things. And it would have been fascinating to see like how this group that you've created like would deal with those kinds of improvised sounds. It's definitely like this group definitely like found their musical, or we found our musical identity.
It definitely challenged me in the sense that I would like to practice more. And it's encouraged me to learn a lot of other things. It opened me up to seeing myself as a guitarist in different contexts, which was quite cool.
Like, I think Dion, coming from a classical background, that wasn't apparent to me, like just the way you kind of shifted into things working. So, you know, like you managed to make that work. Yeah, it would be interesting to see like how far can you push the boundaries of the trans-genre-ness.
The project revealed for me in a new way that one of the major things that leads to cooperation or collaboration is respect. And I use the example of a family. The reason why a group of people can live together as a family is because they respect one another. The moment you stop respecting the other person, then there's going to be a breakdown. Musically speaking, you find that there were times during the project that maybe you wanted to take a solo and another person was starting a solo at the same time. And respect in that instance will mean that one of you will back off. Throughout the project, you find that we were all listening to the other musicians. I find that quite applicable even in life, in living with other people. What we all need is to just respect and try to understand what the other people are doing, other people around us. And I believe that if we have that mutual respect, there will be harmonious living, there will be peace.
So the takeaway from this, for me, was I was surprised at how well we interacted, but it also made me realize how much we have in common that we might not have thought about. I mean, all of us have a range, collectively there's a range of experiences, but there's a lot of overlap. Part of the social interaction that we as musicians had was partly because there was a genuine empathy, because I think as musicians, we do have to travel across boundaries. We do have to use different modes of transportation. We do have to eat different foods. We have to experience people's way of life other than our own. As being a musician, not just playing the music, but in order to exist as a musician, you cross those boundaries. And so that was helpful. So that's another aspect that really contributed to this, I think. When musicians come together to make music as a unit, there is a goal of making good music. What would happen if people came together to live, just exist, and with the goal of existing in harmony? You know, musicians don't come together to be antagonistic. They come together to make music. And so it'd be great if that could scale upward to maybe not society, but communities and this type of thing. So
mostly I just felt like it fed my soul. Like the whole experience was like exactly what I needed in that week, or in whatever. Like I just felt like it was such a warm experience connecting with everybody in that way musically. But yeah, I felt so inspired. It made me want to just do it again.
I hope that people will enjoy it, and I hope we do it again at a studio, proper everything, and do a little project that could go somewhere.